logged in to this webinar. Would you please be on mute? The webinar has put everybody on mute, so you should not be able to unmute right now, but I'm told that there's still some background noise. I would be taking you through this session, today's webinar, which is PMP Exam Changes 2016 Demystified. If you have any issues, please do chat. Once the webinar is over, before the culmination, when the presentation is over, we would open up for you all to get your questions clarified. So the webinar will go on for about 30 minutes. Meanwhile, if you have questions, you can type them out in your chat windows, and I will take the questions at the end of the webinar. Before we start on the webinar, we would like to do a small poll. I would please urge all of you to choose one of the options when the poll opens up. So I have now enabled the poll. I hope you are able to see it. Please choose the relevant option. I urge all of you to please select the option for the poll question. We shall start the webinar as soon as the poll question is answered. Thank you for your cooperation. So we are getting responses for the poll. Thank you, audience. We shall start the presentation now. My name is Asha Ramesh, and I am now working as a trainer with Knowledgehut. I have about 2 decades of experience, 12 of which has been with Dell, and currently I'm working as a trainer for project management and other courses. I welcome you all to this webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, and hope all of you have answered the poll question, and you are looking at the slide on your webinar session, and the quote provided there is from Jim Rohn. I hope you have read it. So it talks about change And I would like to dwell on it a minute before we start going into the PMP changes. I request you all to take the chance and bring a change. Jim Rohn himself is a exemplary example of that change. He was a farm boy and he moved over to Beverly Hills, California as a very successful author, motivational speaker, author of many personal development books, and he lived during the period of 1930s to 2009, and his books are still available and is a motivation to many people who want to make their lives a success. Why am I talking about it? Because he helped change many executives in America's top corporations, and he helped them achieve success. So the reference here is to the fact that PMP certification is definitely the tool that can help you charter in your path to success in the project management world. But success itself is in your hands. So that's the message that I wanted to first share with you all before we go into the changes for PMP exam starting 2016 Jan 11th. So I hope all of you are seeing the agenda on the screen. So we will be discussing about why the PMP exam change is needed and what is changing, what is RDS, which is Role Delineation Survey, what does it mean, what is exam content outline, what is its relation to PMBOK, and how does it impact you who wants to take up the PMP exam. What about the PMP exam will not change and will remain the same post Jan 11th, and you know, in today's changing dynamic world, how is the PMP certification still relevant and a stepping stone to success, right? We'll see all of this in the next 20-25 minutes. Keep your questions ready and keep posting them in the chat window. I would take them once the session is over, the presentation is over. So project management as a profession is evolving. What PMs used to do a decade or so ago is not what they need to do currently, because there's much more that they need to do and is expected out of them in today's dynamic environment. So earlier, PMs were mainly expected to deliver the project on time within the project constraints such as scope, cost, quality, a timely delivery, customer satisfaction. These were the parameters. Now, what is the value that the project is delivering? How is the PM helping the project achieve the value that needs to be delivered? All these are gaining a lot of importance. PMI keeps a very close watch on the ground level developments that is happening in the industries, in the project management stream, and how they do it is through a role delineation study. This is a research study into the role of, in this case, a project manager. It evaluates the PM in terms of competencies, knowledge, and skills as applied in day-to-day work across industries. So this study is conducted once in 3 to 5 years to enable PMI to update its exam content based on what is relevant as of that date, or in that changing scenario. PMI conducts this study very thoroughly in a very structured fashion. The study is conducted by a steering committee of members who are PMP certified volunteers and subject matter experts, and they would head the steering committee as well as a task force that would come up with updates on the current role of a PM and how it has changed from what it was previously. After they come out with their updates, this would be then verified by a larger group of project management practitioners across the globe. And the result of such in-depth analysis and study will go into a document called the exam content outline. So I would now be opening the exam content outline for you to see. The exam content outline is actually the blueprint for the PMP exam, and the PMs are tested on the task that they need to execute across the various domain areas which are in practice. So if you can see my screen now, the exam content outline gets updated every 3 to 5 years, and the latest update was done on June 2015. One of the things that it provides is exam content outline talks about how the questions in the PMP exam are distributed across the 5 practicing domain areas. So initiating is 13%, planning is 24%, executing is 31%, monitoring and controlling is 25%, and closing is 7%. So out of the 200 questions, 13% of the questions would be from initiating. This was the case prior to Jan 2011 and would continue forward. What has changed in this table is there is a slightly more emphasis on executing processes. The questions that were asked previously amounted to about 30% before Jan 11th, and after Jan 11th it would be 31%. And the closing process area, there's a slight decrease from 8% to 7%, the percentage of questions. Otherwise, the rest of it remains same as before. So you might be now wondering about what is this exam content outline, how is it different from PMBOK? So PMBOK is the reference guide of project management body of knowledge. That's one of the main reference guide for the PMP examination. But the questions in the exam are updated, or questions in the exam which are scenario based are formulated based on the task that a PM need to execute in each of the domain areas given below, each of the 5 practice domain areas. So if you look at initiating, there are about 8 tasks. Apart from the tasks, the exam content outline will also provide the knowledge and skills that are required for performing these tasks. So the questions will be based on the scope given over here. The reference document for this will be project management body of knowledge. So majority of the content here would be covered in PMBOK, but that's not the only source. There could be questions which are beyond PMBOK 5, which are normally taken care of by REPs in their course material that they provide for the 35 contact hours. So for each of the domain areas, you have the tasks and the knowledge and skills required, right? And what you find in the end are cross-cutting knowledge and skills. These are also areas from where you could get scenario-based questions. So in short, a role delineation study would align what is relevant in today's world that a project manager has to do with how the PMP exam questions are framed and how the candidates are assessed. I would like to pause here and let you know that what is majorly changed in these in the current format for 2016 Jan 11th and later is that the tasks in the exam content outline have been rephrased, or some of the tasks have been removed, and some of the tasks have been modified to reflect the current role of a PM. As such, nothing much has changed. The PMBOK 5, which is the current version for the PMP exam, which is the reference guide, main reference guide for the PMP exam, there is no change in PMBOK. Based on the tasks that are added, you might find questions related to those areas which as I mentioned earlier has already been covered in PMBOK 5 or would be covered in the material, has been covered in the material that is circulated by the RAPs. There is more emphasis on the new tasks that have been added. So 8 new tasks have been added to the domain areas. And the only thing that's changed is that you might get more questions related to these tasks. About 25% would be based on the new tasks that have been added, 25% of the questions. And most of the content that we are talking about has already been covered. It is just that there is a re-emphasis on business strategy and business realization. So earlier, the material carried elaborate details. I'm talking about the REP materials. The PMBOK doesn't cover much of business strategy and business realization, but all the REP materials would cover project selection methods like benefit measurement and constraint optimization methods. Benefit measurement methods like internal rate of return, net present value, all these have been covered, but in the exam the focus was not so much on all these. Currently, the PMs have been found to be involved in projects right from the initiation or before the initiation of the project itself, when the cost benefit analysis for the project is being done. So PMs are being involved very early in the project life cycle, and hence there is a re-emphasis on benefit, the value to the benefit, and how you measure the benefits that have been realized, and also how your project is being aligned to the strategy of the organization, and how you're going to help in achieving the strategy of the organization. The other aspect that has been re-emphasized, again, this was there in the material, it is there in PMBOK, but there is a emphasis on how lessons learned needs to be not only captured but also shared among the project team members and all the others, and how lessons learned should be recorded across phases on a continuous basis, and there is emphasis on sharing that information. The third aspect is related to project charter preparation. The charter is authorized by the project sponsor, and he is the person accountable for the project charter. The project manager's job is to help build the charter, support the process of charter preparation, but there is again a re-emphasis on the project manager ensuring that all the stakeholders are on the same page regarding the contents of the project charter. The fourth point is related to stakeholder relationships. There's a need to prepare and manage continuously the stakeholder engagement plan to enable the project to be on track and be on line with the expectations of the stakeholders. So as such, to conclude, there is nothing new. The only new aspect, if at all we can think of, is there was not much emphasis on the strategic and business value aspect earlier, but right now, when a PM is managing a project, he should be very well aware of the goals and objectives of his project, and also what is the value that is being delivered, how am I going to measure this value, and when do I start seeing the returns for this, and how the measurement of the value can be communicated to all concerned. So these are some of the aspects that the PM and PM's role has evolved into, that the PM needs to take care of. So here again is the summary of the tasks that have been added. Like I said, it's nothing new. It's just re-emphasis on understanding the whole project and ensuring that the mistakes that may be made, or things that are missed out, or the new learning that you gain in the project is captured and circulated to everyone in the organization. As you can see here, there's only a very slight change in the percentages for the completed. There is a where the emphasis on closing has been reduced from 8% to 7%. Executing, there is more emphasis. It goes up from 30 to 31%. So nothing much to be worried about here. So what is not changing is everything else about the exam. In short, the eligibility requirements, the number of project management hours that you need to garner to be able to submit your application. If you have a 4-year degree, it's about 4,500 hours, and you would also require 35 contact hours from a recognized REP or equivalent, and the exam structure remains the same, 200 multiple choice questions. Of the 200 multiple choice questions that you get, there would be about 25 questions that are basically pre-test questions. What this means is that they will not be graded. That is, whether you have answered it correctly or not will not matter for these 25 questions. But the challenge here is that you wouldn't know which are those 25 questions, right? So this is PMI's way of testing the questions before they finally provide them as graded questions. So the good news here is that the changes that we currently talked about, which are going to be implemented after Jan 11, 2016, are currently being tested as pre-test questions by PMI, and the candidates who have in the recent past taken up the PMP examination have not per se reported any increased level of difficulty or any puzzling thing that they found in the exam. So that's a positive affirming factor that should put to rest all those doubts regarding what is changing. So the exam structure would be the same as before, and it is a 4-hour examination. So PMP, as you all know, is one of the most popular certifications. It's very valued in the industry. Many surveys indicate that candidates who have passed PMP and who have a valid certification get paid more than their non-certified peers. Of course, like I spoke about in the beginning, mastering the PMBOK and the methodology is of utmost importance, and that's one of the biggest gains that you get when you look into the certification and pass the certification. You will have a methodology or a structure, a solid framework in your mind that you can apply in the real world, and that which you can reach out to whenever you face challenges executing projects. PMI also provides a host of networking opportunities for PMPs, and it is a great place to meet your peers, seniors, and juniors across industries at the PMI forums. There are about 600,000 PMPs currently and growing. It's been re-emphasized that the project management skills and project management itself is one of the most important factors that lead to the success of a project, an intern, an organization. If the projects are not managed properly, then failure is imminent. So there's no doubt that PMP is highly valued, and the project management profession itself is set to grow. So to conclude, there are no big changes that are happening. If you are thorough of the PM methodology, the framework, that is the 10 knowledge areas and the 5 process groups, which we referred to as domain areas earlier. If you understand the 47 processes that bind the process groups and the knowledge areas and the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, it would be quite an asset in the real world, as well as if you are able to internalize the methodology, you will not have an issue in passing the PMP exam with flying colors. The more you internalize the theory and apply it to the practice and relate it to the practice, the easier the concepts become to understand and the easier it becomes to clear the exam. Also, equally important is the solving of the scenario-based questions. I would urge anyone wanting to take up the PMP exam to solve at least 3 sets of questions which are scored, 3 sets of mock exams which are freely available on the net and which are also provided by Knowledgehut in their courseware. Take 3 sets of those, get your scores done, and if you're scoring close to 80%, you're well on your way, prepared for cracking the PMP exam. Understanding the material becomes easier if you keep on solving the sample questions related to each of the process groups and the knowledge areas. So you can get more information about the content that I have shared from the PMI site. So we would now open up for questions. We are also checking the results of the poll. So give us just 2 minutes. Meanwhile, I'm waiting for the questions to come in. As of now, we have not received any questions. Does that mean that there are no doubts? So I can see the questions now. So the first question is related to what is the passing percentage for the PMP exam. So the PMI does not disclose the passing score as such, but what is popularly believed is that if you get about 61% of the questions correct, then you should be able to clear the exam. But the actual methodology of scoring and how PMI comes up with the pass or fail status is something that PMI has not disclosed, so it's widely believed to be about 61%. So there is no change in the cost of the exam fees. It's about $555 if you're a non-member. And what I would urge you is to look at the PMP handbook to get all the details of how to go about applying for the PMP exam. And also it will have the details regarding how you should submit the relevant experience. It's really a good resource. So you can find the PMP handbook in the PMI site. If you go to the PMI site and go under certifications and select PMP, you will find the handbook as well as the exam content outline, the PDF files for both of them. They'll have all the information regarding the fees, the renewal process. So you would need to, once you have received the clear the PMP exam and receive the PMP certification, you would still need to accumulate what is known as 60 PDUs or professional development units to keep your certification valid, and that 60 PDUs need to be accumulated within a period of 3 years, after which the certification has to be renewed again because the validity is for 3 years. So all that information will be found in detail in the handbook. Anybody wanting to, before starting to apply for the exam should have a thorough look at the handbook. And there is no change, in all of that, in the way the exam is conducted and the fees of the exam. If you become a PMI member, you would get a discount in your fees, and you can then, participate in the PMI forum activities. You would also get a copy of the PMI standard, which is PMBOK, and other standards that they come out with. So PMBOK 5 edition you would get once you are a PMI member. And if you are a member, then the fees that you have to pay is $405. So it works out to be the same as that of a non-member. You get a discount for the fees, and then you pay the membership fee when you get access to the PMI resources. So it makes more sense to become a member when you are applying for the PMP exam, so that you have access to all of those resources. The only thing is that you need to complete the exam within the first year from the date that you have scheduled, and the membership is also valid for a year. You have to take the re-exam, and you have to pay the re-exam fees. So it makes sense to ensure that you are well prepared so that you have every chance to pass the exam. So again, the re-exam fee details would be provided in the handbook, the PMP handbook that I was talking about. So I am just looking over the questions. I think I have covered all. Sandhya, please let me know if there is anything that I haven't taken yet. So PMBOK is not downloadable from the link that I have provided. I have provided the references that I have provided are for the exam content outline and the site that talks about the PMP exam changes. So if you want a copy of PMBOK file, that is something that you will get when you become a PMI member. So I can quickly try and log in to the PMI website to show the handbook. So the PMI handbook will have all of the information, like I said, specifically related to the exam fees. How do you go about accumulating the experience, the project management experience, and also provide details about the contact details of the manager with whom you have performed the work of the project which you claim as your experience. So it's very important to understand how your application should be filled, and also all of the re-exam procedures is also covered in the handbook. But I would uh, urge you all to focus on what is needed to clear the exam on first attempt. And like I said, if you are able to take full-fledged exam online, the free ones that are available, and if you are able to get a very good decent score on it, then you should be able to pass the PMP examination without any issues. So I'm just opening up the PMI site in order to be able to view the handbook, the PMP handbook. So you don't have to be a member of the PMI to be able to access this. You can register at the site and then access it. It will also be available for download. If you Google for it, We have also received the poll results. 67% want to take the PMP exam in 2016. This is really great news, and I suppose all of those who have chosen an option other than A for the poll question would also now want to take up the PMP exam in 2016. I hope there aren't any more questions in your mind or doubts in your mind regarding either the value that this certification would provide, yeah, or the procedure for applying, etc., because now you have the required resources to help you through this process. So all you have to do now is to keep some time in a day for study and work towards this, prepare a timetable, have goals, and set about attaining this. So I have now, I'm now opening up the handbook. I'm sorry, it's pretty slow. So, like I mentioned, the handbook has got very detailed information, and you need to go through the handbook. You also need to go through the ethics and responsibilities that a PM needs to comply by. That is also there in the PMI site. So this is the handbook. And it will talk about the audit process. That is, very small percentage of the PMP applications will be selected for audit. So normally it's a very small percentage when compared to number of people who apply for it. And if your application is realistic and complete, then there are chances that it may not come up for audit. But in case it does, then you should have the relevant material in terms of the experience that you have claimed to have done, and the person whom you have provided as the contact should be able to justify that you have done all that you have claimed to have done in the project, and that he was your manager for the same. So if you see this, it has got details of eligibility requirements, details of how you go about filling the application itself, details about the payment, the validity, how long your certification is valid, when can you schedule for the exam, once you schedule, how soon should you take the exam. The entire information is there, and all the re-exam requirements should also is also covered in this. So this is one of the first things that you need to be doing, going through the handbook. Okay, there is a question on whether you should go in for Prince 2 or PMP. So PMP is the popular certification provided by PMI, which is in the US, and Prince 2 is a certification which is a standard in the UK, whereas PMP is a standard that is globally accepted and is approved by ISO and American National Standards Organization. So PMP, I would say, has global appeal. So if you have any more queries and if you need more information on anything related to PMP, you can contact Knowledgehut. I see a lot of questions asking for my number. So you can contact me through Knowledgehut, and we would try our best to answer questions that you may further have, or if those have not been addressed in toto in this call, we would definitely try and get back to. So please send your questions to Knowledgehut, and uh, we will try our best to reach out to you. So I would like to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to attend this webinar. I hope you have benefited out of this, and I hope all of you will seriously think and work towards making that change in your lives, that is working towards getting a PMP certification, and we are here to support you through your journey. Thank you very much. Have a good day.